I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and the murder trial for his alleged killer, Karen Reed. It's a case unlike any other, and now, second time around, it's all about the seconds on a timeline. Here's the story. On a snowy January morning in 2022, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was discovered unresponsive in the front yard of 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts. The storm had nearly buried his body, but questions about how he ended up there quickly ignited a firestorm. His girlfriend, Karen Reed, was charged with second-degree murder, accused of backing into him with her SUV during a night of drinking and leaving him outside to die. But the case soon spiraled into a national sensation. Reed's defense insists she was framed, the victim of a cover-up orchestrated by those protecting their own. The first trial divided the community in Norfolk County and on social media. Now, in her high-stakes retrial, Reed faces the same charges, but with even more public attention and support from a very vocal group of followers. With lives, reputations, and justice on the line, the courtroom has become the epicenter of a case that continues to divide and captivate. And second time around, this trial, the focus has really changed, especially during the prosecution's case. We're much more locked into the timeline and when certain things happened. And it's not an accident. I mean, Hank Brennan, in his opening statement, talked about the digital evidence and how it fits together and tells a story. And the digital evidence is more trustworthy, according to the prosecution. So what I want to do is, during this hour, we are going to focus in on very specific points in that timeline to see if they make sense and what they tell us about what happened to John O'Keefe. Let's begin at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, because this is the last time John O'Keefe is seen alive on video, and he is outside the waterfall getting ready to leave. Take a look.
Now there's another individual sort of making their way to the doorway. Do you recognize that person?
Yes, that's John.
That's John O'Keefe.
John O'Keefe, yes.
Exiting from the waterfall.
Correct.
Individual sort of down towards the bottom of the frame. Do you recognize who that is?
It's Karen and John.
So that would be the point in time where you say they sort of link up at the front door and then walk towards Washington Street?
That's correct.
Okay, and you saw the timestamp there. So they're leaving the waterfall. It closes around midnight. It's 12:11, and John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, who are going to get together and go in Karen's SUV, are seen just outside the waterfall. So that's at 12:11. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. And it's about, when did they arrive at 34 Fairview? 34 Fairview's in Canton, the waterfall's in Canton. I've been there, I've done that drive. But when did they arrive? Such an important part of this timeline. And let's start with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who joins us. Cody, when did John O'Keefe and Karen Reed get to 34 Fairview, the Alberts house?
Well, Vinnie, according to the prosecution's witness, Ian Whiffen, that was that digital forensic examiner, he testified to the exact time he determined them to come to a complete stop in front of 34 Fairview just a little bit after that video we just played. Take a listen to what he had to say on the stand.
24 minutes and 28 seconds, traveling at 14.5 miles an hour, at which point it's approximately outside number 34, around the driveway area. At 24 minutes and 37 seconds, traveling at 1.4 miles an hour. Finally, the device comes to a complete stop at 24 minutes and 38 seconds.
So you heard him right there, Vinny. According to Whiffen, he says they came to a complete stop in front of that house at 12:24 and 38 seconds in the morning, that morning in front of 34 Fairview.
Now, we know they're not the only ones there, and there was testimony from Ryan Nagel and his former girlfriend now, Heather, who was in the car with him. What did they see? Because they're there at 34 Fairview around the same time, arriving around the same time.
Yeah, Vinny, so for those who don't remember, Ryan Nagel is the brother of Julie Nagel, who Julie is a friend of Brian Albert Jr., whose birthday party was going on in the house that night. Now, Julie called Ryan to come pick her up and take her home, but once he got there, she told him that she actually wanted to stay. And Ryan didn't want to go inside and go into the party, so him and Heather left. And as they passed, after they left, they passed Karen Reed's car. This is what Ryan and Heather said they saw, what they testified to on the stand.
There was a woman in the driver's seat of the black SUV in front of me, sitting there with her hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2.
You saw that the passenger's seat was empty. Do you remember that?
Yes.
All right. You're not changing that testimony?
No, I'm not changing that. No.
I observed the female in the driver's seat. I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
So you heard him there, Vinny. They saw a woman, nobody else, let alone John O'Keefe.
All right. Thanks so much, Cody. Let's bring in our guest. Joining me, host of Road Patrol Live, John DePietro, and Karen Reed supporter and nurse Kim on YouTube and TikTok. Kim Whalen with us. Great to have you both here. 12:24, 38 seconds is when Whiffen says they arrive. We know other people are arriving at the same time. John DePietro, is that time significant to you? What story does that time tell you, that they're getting there at 12:24 and 38 seconds?
It tells us, Vinny, they get there, and Jenn McCabe, who's, she's the one guiding John. She was the last one on the phone with him. She's really, her and Matt McCabe, they're the ones that John know, and they're the ones, that she's kind of guiding them to come to the house. So she looks out. It would seem that John O'Keefe and Karen were possibly arguing in front of the house, but they did pull up, and then it's so important because Jenn McCabe looked out and saw the SUV, and then she also talked about at different times it kept moving, but Jenn McCabe is the one that saw the SUV out in front and knew who it was, and actually even texted John O'Keefe saying, like, basically, you're here, you've arrived.
Kim, this arrival time to me is significant, not just because of setting up a timeline, but also the other car that is arriving at the same time and what they didn't see that night, which was John O'Keefe.
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny. That has always been a question of not seeing Officer John O'Keefe and clearly having a memory of seeing Karen Reed, or a female rather, with their hands at 10 and 2. And it's interesting that John brings up that Jennifer McCabe was the one who placed Karen Reed's Lexus vehicle at 34 Fairview, and specifically in all the different places in which she got up and walked over to the door and either looked out that storm glass or out a window, Vinny, and saw it move up from directly outside the front door and then moving up further.
Let me ask you, John, why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe? And specifically, Ryan Nagel and Heather, why didn't they see John O'Keefe? I don't understand.
Vinny, it's just odd, and I agree. And Ryan Nagel, he could have said, yeah, I saw him as well. He testified last spring he didn't see him. He also testified he never saw anyone cross the lawn. It's just one of those things with an eyewitness or the timing. Maybe he was lying back in the seat, maybe the angle they were at. But this also, this makes Jenn McCabe, as you know, such a pivotal witness because she's the one that saw the SUV. She was the one texting with John. She was the last one other than Karen Reed to actually talk to John O'Keefe, Jenn McCabe, and she was the one communicating with him. But I agree with you. It is odd. It's just one of those things that Ryan Nagel, didn't see her, and then they believe that this collision happened after Ryan Nagel left. But the timeline is the most important.
Yeah, and as we zero in on this time, arriving together, they're just behind them. The dome light is on, so it's illuminated inside. But Kim, it cuts both ways, right? Not seeing John O'Keefe, and I understand only one side has the burden of proof, but it does cut both ways in trying to figure out where John O'Keefe was, in that they didn't see him walk into the house, but they didn't see him in the car either.
Yeah, that's true, Vinny. But I think that when they were arriving to the home, right, they are looking for whom? Julie Nagel to be coming out. And I think that for that moment when they're pulling away, that is the big moment. And that's up to 5 minutes later, right? Or 3 to 5 minutes later. So, you know, there was a whole conversation that was had. And when they are exiting, leaving 34 Fairview, that is when they pull by and see the dome light and say it's only Karen Reed. So I believe that that would have been an opportunity for Officer John O'Keefe to exit the vehicle and just not be seen.
So, John, what are your thoughts about the timing of what's happening in front here? You know, because as Robert Alessi's been saying, and I think it's absolutely true here, especially in this retrial, every second counts. Yes. Every second counts. So what is taking place with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, and what exactly is the situation? Why is it not just a pull up, park the car, and get out? Because it doesn't seem like that's what happened here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vinny, and that's the unknown. That is the unknown of what exactly, were they having a conversation in the car? Were they arguing in the car? As we know, when Jenn McCabe was giving directions and he had her on speakerphone, even though he had plugged in the address into his Waze, that she said it's right down the street from Bella's house. And Bella was a little girl that was friendly with the niece, but then John apparently had a fling with Bella's mom, Ashley. Karen Reed has mentioned that in different interviews where she heard Ashley, not Bella. But the point is, it's been speculation that when Jenn McCabe said it's right near Bella's house, to kind of give him a landmark of where it was, that it's very possible that that triggered Karen Reed. But there is something odd, I agree, that they were in front of the house, and they were in front of the house for a few minutes. It wasn't, as you say, it's not like they park and boom, they zip in. Jenn McCabe is noticing they've arrived, but they're not coming into the house.
Okay. A lot of talk about Jenn McCabe. So when we come back, when did Jenn McCabe see the SUV?
I saw a dark SUV out front.
A VPI special report.
The P. Diddy sex abuse scandal that has rocked Hollywood and the world of hip-hop.
The downfall of a music mogul.
Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years.
An all-new look at the evidence and the latest from inside the courtroom.
That was the moment when everything changed.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, a Diddy special report. Wednesday night, 9/8 Central on Court TV.
I finally got the...
I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him? Could I have tagged him in the knee and incapacitated him? He didn't look mortally wounded as far as I could see. Or could I have done something that knocked him out?
Karen Reed in that clip that's been shown to the jury, asking the questions that the jury will ultimately have to answer in this case. It's unreal the way this is all playing out. Now, we're focusing in on that timeline. As we've been talking about, Jenn McCabe is really an important witness when it comes to what is happening out in front of 34 Fairview. Take a listen.
I saw a dark SUV out front.
Did you know whose SUV that was?
I believed it was Karen's.
Could you see who was in it?
No, but I saw it in a few different locations. I was expecting John and Karen to come into the house.
Did they ever make it in the house?
No, they did not.
This is important because, again, seconds matter in this case, and that brings us to the next question in our investigation. It's about Jenn McCabe. When did Jenn McCabe see the SUV? Because she's talking about it. Oh, yeah, I'm seeing, but when exactly was that? Let's start with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, can we figure out from the testimony and the evidence when Jenn McCabe allegedly saw the SUV?
Well, yeah, Vinny, no doubt that Jenn McCabe was one of the prosecution's biggest witnesses, and she also testified about texting John O'Keefe as him and Karen were arriving out front at 34 Fairview. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Did you ever reach out to John when you thought the car out front was the defendant's car with John in it. Did you ever reach out to him?
Yes, I did.
How did you reach out to him?
I texted him.
Do you remember what you were texting him?
The first time I said here.
What do you mean by here? Was that
Like
exclamation point?
here, question mark, because that's when I saw the car. After I saw the car move locations, when I saw it go up to the flagpole, I said, pull behind me.
So, Vinnie, we're talking timelines here, and it's important that we clarify some of this timeline regarding Jenn McCabe's text to John in relation to when all of this allegedly happened. So, Jenn McCabe texts, pull behind me, to John at 12:31:47 a.m. Now, the Apple Health event that we call the 36 Steps starts at 12:31:56 a.m., just a few seconds later. Now, that is according to the prosecution's presentation of O'Keefe's phone data. Now, the second trigger event of the Lexus occurs between 12:32:04 a.m. and 12:32:12 a.m. That's about an 8-second gap there, and that's according to the prosecution's time-shifted analysis of the Lexus data. So all of this, Vinnie, is happening in close proximity, and a little bit of quick math shows that Jenn McCabe's text being sent is just seconds before all of this happens in front of the house, actually about 17 seconds. So it's all right there close together.
Such a short time period, but no one sees John O'Keefe outside of the car. All right, thanks, Cody. Still with us, host of Road Patrol Live, John DePietro, and Nurse Kim on YouTube and TikTok, Kim Whalen. Kim, this is the part, to me, it's uncanny. Like, there's all these people looking out the window, including Jenn McCabe, and she's sending the text, and we see the time of the text. Yet, no one who was pulling up or walking in and out of the house or looking out the window sees John O'Keefe get out of the car, sees John O'Keefe on the ground, sees Karen Reed pull away, or sees Karen Reed put it in reverse, or sees John O'Keefe get hit by Karen Reed. But when we look at that timeline, that 12:31:47 of the text message, pull behind me, after she sees it pull up by the flagpole, it's just seconds before, according to prosecutors, that John O'Keefe is outside and all of this happens.
Yeah. It's remarkable, Vinnie, if we think about it. And to really focus in on not just the here question mark and pull behind me, but additionally, after this horrific alleged collision occurred right outside of 34 Fairview, there were additional text messages sent by Jennifer McCabe to Officer John O'Keefe, where in the first trial, she had definitely testified that she got up and saw that vehicle after the pull behind me. She pulled back, ironically, in this year's trial testimony and said that she could only really account for her seeing the vehicle the first two text messages, but that's not what we heard in trial one.
Yeah, and if that testimony was part of this trial and part of this timeline, John DePietro, it would have been during the trigger event or after John O'Keefe is on the front yard. So is the timeline still making sense to you, John, at this point with her sending that text message at 12:31:47, just seconds before all of the other things like the Apple Health and the trigger event occur?
It does, Vinnie. And Jenn McCabe, I mean, there's no question. She was a pivotal witness in this. I don't know if they have such a solid case if it's not for Jenn McCabe. And the defense knew that, by the way. I mean, I was in court. It was Jenn McCabe week. She was on the stand for an entire week. Very good with the jury. But she is such a conduit here because not only is she the only one that spotted the vehicle that actually knew who it was, is saying it was John and Karen. She was communicating with him. She was the last one to speak to him. And then, as you know, she played a larger role the next morning when she spoke to Karen Reed. But I think when you look at how she didn't know exactly what was happening outside. She's just texting from inside and sees that they've arrived and then, later just thought maybe they didn't come in for whatever reason. But make no mistake about it, Jennifer McCabe is just such a key pivotal witness in this trial.
The other part that Cody pointed out were the 36 steps, Kim. I've always been confused by the 36 steps. Like, where is he going? Where is he going? Because according to the theory that we've seen the prosecution put out there is it seems he gets struck while he's in the street. So if he gets out of the car and he's in the street when he gets struck, was it 18 steps one way and then 18 steps back? What? I'm trying to understand that. Do you have an understanding of the 36 steps?
Well, to my understanding, Vinnie, I do believe that Officer John O'Keefe got out of the vehicle, and where he was placed is just where your camera is showing right now. The jury view had Karen Reed's Lexus vehicle at the side of the road. There was never a question if Karen was in the middle of the road, on the opposite side of the road. I mean, these are the Commonwealth's own witnesses. So, therefore, one would expect if he were to get out of that passenger side, he would have been where? Directly on that grass, not in the street or anywhere associated, and in that 36 steps would have made his way to the front door or the side breezeway door.
John DePietro, where'd he go? 36 steps.
I mean, it's unknown. You don't know how many he was making, but Vinnie, I'm telling you, I mean, maybe the defense should call Kim to the stand to help them, because they can't get him inside the house. And what has really stood out, I understand the whole element of the timeline, but according to the data, his cell phone stopped moving after she backed up. In this trial, in this courtroom, everything is taking place outside at the flagpole.
John DePietro, Road Patrol Live. Check it out, folks. And Nurse Kim on YouTube and TikTok. Check it out, Kim Whalen. Thank you both so much. Up next, when was John O'Keefe allegedly struck by the SUV? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe, a case with many witnesses but no eyewitnesses to the alleged crime. As a result, prosecutors are trying to prove their case with digital evidence and experts. Here's the story. The tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe shocked a community and ignited a true crime firestorm. On a freezing January night in 2022, O'Keefe was out drinking with friends and his girlfriend, Karen Reed. By morning, he was found lifeless in the snow outside of 34 Fairview Road in Canton, his body battered and bruised. Karen Reed, a finance professor, soon became the center of a storm, accused of backing her SUV into him during a drunken argument and leaving him to die in the snow. But Reed claims innocence, alleging a cover-up involving law enforcement, hidden evidence, and a web of deceit. The couple's relationship, once full of affection, is now dissected in court and in public debate. The case has become a dramatic saga of love, loss, betrayal, and power, one that has fractured a town and captivated the country, with a retrial uncovering more explosive revelations. Timeline, timeline, timeline. That's what this retrial has been about. And we're diving into it, looking at some really crucial pieces of the timeline. But I want to take a moment to go back to the 2024 trial, because during that case, Adam Lally, the lead prosecutor of case number 1, he's helping here in case number 2, but in case number 1, he had a very specific time for when John O'Keefe was struck and killed by Karen Reed. Take a listen.
So there is some data that he's able to recover from that and back the vehicle up based on its known locations and travel. He cycles and essentially opines, he'll opine that around 12:45 in the morning, when the vehicle was in front of the residence on Fairview, that for some perceptible period of time, that vehicle travels over 60 feet in reverse at over approximately 24.2 miles per hour.
12:45, that was the time in the first trial. That's been abandoned by the prosecution. That timeline is done and over with. They have revamped, retooled, and reconfigured the timeline in this case. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. When was John O'Keefe allegedly struck by the SUV? Again, in a case where seconds count, this is crucial. Let's try to figure it out. Let's start with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. All right, Cody, what are the key times surrounding John O'Keefe's final moments here as we try to answer this question?
Well, Vinny, answering this question is, of course, tricky because we first have to gain an understanding of the prosecution's data that was presented relevant to the collision. So we've talked about and discussed these three separate events, this 36-step Apple Health event, according to the prosecution presenting O'Keefe's phone data. We talk about the second trigger event according to the time-shifted analysis of the Lexus, and we talk about O'Keefe's phone locking for the last time. And as you see right there on your screen, we've made a timeline showing the times at which all these events occurred. The health event and phone locking is represented in white, and the second trigger event in yellow. Now, the health event occurs between 12:31:56 a.m. and 12:32:16 a.m. The second trigger event occurs between 12:32:04 a.m. and 12:32:12 a.m. And O'Keefe's phone locking for the last time occurs at 12:32:09 a.m. Now, this timeline places O'Keefe's phone locking within the window of the second trigger event, which fits the prosecution's story of O'Keefe being hit within that time frame.
What did the prosecution's witnesses say about this time variance, this time shifting, this clock drifting?
Yeah, of course, Vinny, that controversial witness, the digital forensic analyst Shannon Burgess, he testified to how much time variance was applied in order to sync the Lexus data with John O'Keefe's phone data. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Did you come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty about the variance range between the defendant's Lexus and its clock system and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, I did.
And to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what is that variance that is needed to identify for synchronization?
Certainly, Your Honor.
Oh. That is 21 to 29 seconds.
And again, Vinnie, Burgess was a little bit controversial regarding his credentials when he was testifying, but that what we just heard explains how the prosecution adjusted the timeline for this time variance.
Okay, now, our question is, when was John O'Keefe allegedly struck by the SUV? And we just learned something real important about what the Lexus data did not capture.
That's absolutely right, Vinny. So defense attorney Robert Alessi pressed the reconstructionist that we've heard from a lot in the past few days, Judson Welcher, on the stand during the final moments of his cross-examination about the Lexus allegedly hitting John O'Keefe. This is what Welcher had to say about the Lexus itself.
You want this jury, sir, to conclude that the glancing blow that you contend occurred at 34 Fairview Road by the same 6,000-pound Lexus in contact with a mere 216-pound man did register an event on the Lexus, correct?
No. The impact didn't register the event. As I pointed out, the trigger was from when the accelerator pedal went to 30%. The tech stream does not register crashes at all. It registers excessive acceleration, excessive steering, excessive braking, things like that.
So you heard it, Vinny. The Lexus does not record collisions. There is no data from the vehicle regarding collisions whatsoever. So the best the prosecution can do is pretty much just tell us when the Lexus was put into reverse.
That's fascinating because earlier in the case, based upon some of the testimony and data, I believe that the triggering event was the collision. I think it was Ian Whiffen was talking about that, but it's not because it doesn't record it. All right, let's dig deeper. Joining me, criminal defense attorney, host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Motta, and criminal defense attorney Margaret McLean. Great to have you both here. All right, Bob, where are we now on this question? When was John O'Keefe allegedly struck by the SUV? Do you have a clear idea of it? I see a lot of times here, reverse, trigger event. I see the 36 steps ending after the phone is locked, after the trigger event. I'm trying to figure it out. Have you figured it out?
No, I haven't. I mean, I know what they're saying. They're saying it's at 12:32:12. You know, that's when they're claiming that the accident took place. However, you know, Judson Welcher just didn't put any science up there that would have shown us exactly how this happened. Like, we heard zero evidence about the taillight. Like, how did the taillight explode? Like, just telling us that something happened and just saying, hey, trust me, bro, that's when it happened, without backing it up with any science, to me, just has me wondering what happened to John O'Keefe.
Margaret, are you convinced as to when the SUV, according to prosecutors, struck John O'Keefe?
I actually am. Okay, we can't pinpoint the exact time, but I'll give you a time frame based on the Apple Health data and based on the trigger event that you were talking about when the Lexus backed up. I put it between 12:32 and 9 seconds and 12:32 and 16 seconds. The last one, 12:32:16, was when that phone stopped moving in the Apple Health event. Now, I'm not saying that they can record, the 36 steps, I'll give or take that, because sometimes Apple Health can record us stepping when we're really not stepping, we're standing there. I think O'Keefe was standing outside the car. Maybe he took a few steps, but I would put it in that 7-second time frame, absolutely, if you follow the data.
All right, Bob, here's the big question, and I think the defense has to answer this in their case. According to this timeline, the Apple Health data ends at 12:32:16. If he's walking in the house and things are happening, why isn't the phone moving anymore after 12:32:16?
I mean, the easiest answer is he turned the phone off, or it was in Apple mode, or airplane mode, or whatever took place in that house, if something took place in that house, took place immediately. I mean, my concept was...
But wouldn't the phone still have to move if John O'Keefe is with his phone inside, takes the 36 steps and gets inside? How does the body and the phone get outside without any more data being recorded?
Well, I think it's going to probably be addressed by their first witness, who I think is going to be DeZorga, who's going to be their data guy. I mean, they're going to have to try to address that with him in terms of them looking at what Burgess came up with. And, you could take Burgess for what he is. I mean, we all heard his testimony. He had some issues with his forthrightness about his education level. I mean, the prosecution's going to put on their witnesses, and you're going to take them for what they're worth. And then the defense is going to put on their case in chief. My biggest problem, Vinny, is I don't really care at all about when they're claiming that John O'Keefe was struck, because they didn't prove that he was struck.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to process. There's different levels of looking at this, right? Straight timeline, physical evidence, et cetera, and then some of the testimony. Margaret, why didn't anyone see anything? I keep coming back to this. No one saw her car pull away. No one saw her car in reverse. No one saw her strike him. No one saw him outside. There were people that arrived at the same time they did. No one saw him in the car. No one saw him out of the car. Why is that? Because everything's happening right around that time. People are there. People are looking out the window. No one saw anything. Why not?
Okay, first of all, the people in the house, they weren't all staring out the window. They were sitting around the table, they were talking, they were having drinks and all that. Now, Jenn McCabe had to get up and go to the door to look. Remember, she testified that she had to do that to see where they were, where they were coming. She placed him by the flagpole. And then Ricky fits into the timeline perfectly. Remember, he had his truck. He goes by the Lexus and he sees the dome light is on, and Karen's got her hands at 9 and 2, and he doesn't see John O'Keefe. Well, I think at that moment, John O'Keefe was right outside. He was right outside the Lexus, and it fits perfectly with the time frame. And again, just addressing Bob's observations, nothing at all puts that cell phone inside the house. Nothing. So there's no proof of a conspiracy theory. I don't see it at all. There's no evidence.
Guests are staying with us. Still to come. When did Karen Reed get back to 1 Meadows?
Third message, what time is that? received?
12:59.
John, I'm telling you, kid, and nobody knows what the you want her.
We are here today because John O'Keefe was killed by the actions and conduct of that defendant, Karen Reed.
Wow. We're getting into the depths of this timeline and trying to put the pieces together and some really important parts of all of this. Now we're in the part where after the murder, according to prosecutors, has happened, and there are some phone calls made by Karen Reed. Take a listen.
Now, as far as this first voicemail, what time did this occur?
12:37 a.m.
And with the court's permission, if I could play that for the jury.
Yes.
Third message, what time is that received?
12:59.
John, I'm telling you, kid, and nobody knows what the you want her.
With regard to the fifth message, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:11 a.m.
Yes, 1 in the morning, I'm with your niece and nephew. You pervert.
So the times, again, 12:37, 12:59, 1:11 a.m. These phone calls, these messages are being left. But that brings us to the next question in our investigation as we back things up a little bit, which is, when did Karen Reed get back to One Meadows, back to John O'Keefe's house? At what point? When did she's making the calls at 12:37, 12:59, but when did she get back there? Let's start with Court TV Field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, what is the timeline of Karen Reed's drive back to One Meadows, John O'Keefe's house?
Well, Vinny, what we do know based on the prosecution's presentation of the data is that the end of the Lexus's second trigger event is around 12:32, 12 a.m. They say Reed arrives at One Meadows at 12:36, 39 a.m. based on her phone connecting to the Wi-Fi at John O'Keefe's home. Now, if you do some quick math there, that is about 4 minutes and 27 seconds from 34 Fairview to One Meadows. Now, to point out, earlier in the trial, we were operating under this assumption that it took Reed 5 minutes and 1 second to get from 34 Fairview to One Meadows based on the Aperture report, but that was before the introduction of all this time variance adjustments to the timeline. Now, Vinny, you remember as well as I do, we did our own little experiment when we were in Boston, driving from 34 Fairview, in Dedham, I should say, from 34 Fairview to One Meadows. Here's a clip of that.
Yep. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to drive from 34 Fairview to John O'Keefe's home, and we're going to time it to see how it goes. So let's hit start. So is there enough time from when they allege the impact happened to when they actually arrive at John O'Keefe's? Okay, we're about 1.5 minutes in, and it says we have about 4 minutes to go to get there. So let's see how that goes. The speed limit here is 30 miles per hour. That night, there's no one else on the road. Is she driving faster? Is she driving slower? All right, at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, we hit a red light. Did she hit any red lights that night? That's a big deal. Here it comes. This is it, right here. Is that it?
One more.
One more. Yep. 400 more feet. We hit 6 miles. Yeah, this is it right here. We're at 6 minutes and 10 seconds, and we have made it.
Now, of course, Vinny, we were going the speed limit. We caught a couple of red lights, some no turn on reds. Weather conditions were different, but it still took us a bit longer, almost 2 minutes longer than this 4 minutes and 27 seconds time point.
The weather conditions a lot better for us than they were that night. Cody, thanks so much. Let's bring back in Bob Motta and Margaret McLean. Margaret, 4:27 to make that drive. I'm telling you right now, she's got to be booking. She's got to have the pedal to the metal driving through the snow.
I don't know about that because you guys hit 2 lights, remember? And another thing is she connected with the Wi-Fi within 300 feet of the house. So I don't know if you calculated that, but she connected at 12:36 and 39 seconds. So that's when she approximately arrived. And then the Lexus powered off between 12:42:29 and 12:42:37. So, adjusted. And then the other interesting thing is the ring camera for that exact time was missing. I wonder what's up with that. The footage is completely missing. And of course, in between, she had done 2 voicemails in between that time. I think at 12:37 and then at around 12:42-ish, right?
Right. Well, the missing video, the fingers have been pointed by both sides. I mean, the prosecution's pointing at Karen Reed erasing stuff, but they're pointing it right back at at Trooper Proctor or someone else from the state police erasing all that. Bob, does this make sense, this 4:27 drive, 4 minutes and 27 seconds?
I mean, it's fast. Did you guys, let me ask you, Vinny, did you guys hit stop signs? Because there's 3 different routes I think you can take. And I think that the route that you guys take, did you guys hit about 6 stop signs? Do you remember offhand?
I don't recall. We just took whatever was the shortest according to Waze.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the X factor of the traffic signals, obviously the stop signs, but I mean, the weather's probably the biggest thing. I mean, we know, if you're to believe what Welcher was testifying to, that there was slippage on the tires, so we know that the roads were slippery, so she's not going to be doing, 40, 50 miles an hour in that type of weather. I don't think that that's a reasonable kind of summary to reach in terms of how she'd be driving that night. And I just think that ultimately, I don't think that the times line up. It's even with the good weather. I mean, it took you guys 6 minutes, and how many lights did you catch? 2 or 1?
We caught 2. One was short. The other one was a little bit longer. Let me ask you, Margaret, and we have about 20 seconds here. Does this case come down to the timeline? Will the jury focus on the timeline, or are they going to be looking elsewhere?
Well, you never know what a jury's going to do, but I think they will absolutely pay attention to the timeline, because during that time they were taking vigorous notes, except for one.
And Bob, 10 seconds. Your final word on this.
The science, man. This case lives in the science. You can talk about timelines all day, but the science has to support a conviction.
Bob Motta, Margaret McLean, thank you both so much. Appreciate your valuable time. We'll see you soon. For me, timelines are so important. When I'm covering a story, it's one of the first things I try to understand. What happened and when? Who had an opportunity to commit the crime, to commit the murder? And that's exactly the question that the jury will have in this case. Did Karen Reed have an opportunity to murder John O'Keefe? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues.